we'll go ahead and start the recording tonight and see how far we get. I am bound and determined to finish up these letters to the congregations in Asia tonight. I'm going to finish up Philadelphia and Laodicea tonight, or die trying, one or the other. So we've made it through all of them but the last two. So let's look at Philadelphia first. Let's see what we got here on Philadelphia. Philadelphia is an agricultural community. This is, remember, most of these cities we've had so far have been trade hubs and very urban, but this one Philadelphia is a little more agricultural. The problem is it's near an active, or during this time, this first century, it was near a active fault line. So also, in addition to having, selling farm goods and such and a trade route, they had frequent earthquakes. So the city was not as prosperous as it could have been, but it's not a bad situation either. The Jewish population was active, and as a lot of times when you have an active Jewish population, you have a potential of gaining a lot of believers, but you also have the potential of running into some problems with the Jewish community, and they were having some issues with the Jewish population. Philadelphia is also a Roman city, and remember that we talked a couple of the others, Thyatira and Ephesus, I think it was. The Jews had a special, especially the Jews of the diaspora, the Jews that were northern kingdom Jews that had been scattered during the Assyrian uh, uh, spell. They had a special place in Roman law in most cities, and Philadelphia was one of them, where they could worship with relative freedom, not having to deal with emperor worship. And that was here too. So you had that friction between the Jewish believers and the Jewish non-believers, that the Jewish believers were looked upon more as Christians and not Jews, so there was that friction too. So there was a lot of, again, this is more social persecution than physical persecution. And you know, here we are. We're in the American church. We've got things given to us. We couldn't have it much better. So it's hard for us a lot of times to think of much less physical persecution, but the social persecution. Now, it is becoming more and more. Um, we are not near the Christian country than we were when I was growing up and when most of you were growing up. Um, when and I think Anthony mentioned this on Sunday. It wasn't. No, it was John. It was John that mentioned it. Um, when you went to school. Your teachers, virtually every one of them, were church going ladies. All the kids were in school for the most part, and that's just not true anymore. So we are coming to a time when we're going to see social social pressure, and that's what we're dealing with here in Philadelphia. So let's let's take a look here at starting in verse 7 in chapter 3. If you'll open up your Bibles there, chapter 3 of Revelation. We're on verse 7. That's about the second paragraph down. Starts out just like they all do. And to the angel of the congregation in Philadelphia write, the words of the Holy One, the true One, who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, and who shuts and no one will open. Once again, like in the rest of them, we're dealing with this heavenly being that we saw in the vision in the first chapter, that comes on and looks a lot like God, but still the description includes a lot of description that we know to be the Son of God, that describes Jesus in his risen state. So as has been our custom, we're calling this angel, this heavenly being, not angel, this heavenly being that is dictating these letters, we're calling that person God, being the Godhead, the God of Israel, because we don't really get a clue. It never gives us a name. So we're going to find that in Revelation a lot, where we deal in a lot of grays, not so much black and white a lot of times. But that's the nature of prophecy. We saw it in Daniel too. So, but this one here is we're getting a little clearer in our description. We see the words of the Holy One, the true One. Now those two are definite descriptions of God the Father. The Holy One, the Most Holy God, El Elyon in Hebrew, the Most Holy, the True One, and the one who has the key of David. Oh, now there's an odd one. There's an odd thing there. There's an odd thing there. And we need to look at that key of David here. So we're going to skip. We're going to leave Revelation a little bit, and we're going to go into Isaiah, 22nd chapter of Isaiah, if you'll flip over there. So remember, the one who has the key of David, well, I don't know what that means, who opens and no one will shut, and who shuts and no one will open. We've got to figure out what that means. So the 22nd chapter of Isaiah, we'll start in the 15th verse. Oh, and I forgot again. Does anybody have any questions left over from last week? Any questions left over from last week? And one of the things I thought about not saying anything, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. So remember where we are. We're talking about the key of David, the one who shuts and nobody can open, and the one who opens and nobody can shut. That's what we're looking at in the 22nd chapter of Isaiah. But there was another one of those weird happenings, and I'm disappointed that BJ is not here, because he would appreciate this, because we were sort of talking about it. Well, no, he wasn't there, but Anthony and I were sort of talking about this on Wednesday night. But today, I was listening to one of the podcasts that I usually do about these ancient myths, stories, legends that all seem to match up when you start looking at them closely. No matter whether they're from China or the Middle East, Persian, Syrian, or now we're looking at stuff that's in Great Britain in the Middle Ages. And there was something that was said today that just this morning I was fighting artificial intelligence this morning, and I was talking to it in a raised voice. Now I get to work real early, so there's not but about one or two people in the building, me and usually my scrum master, and he he's used to hearing me talk to the computer sometimes. But I got to talking to that artificial intelligence agent that these guys built, And it was just, if you think those things are going to take over your job, forget it. They are they are dumb as a post. They got a
Only
good
as smart as who put it in there.
yeah, exactly. They and that was another funny thing that. So I was just, complaining about this thing, how it was telling me to go to this place to look for the answer. And I went to that place and the answer was not there. And I said to it, I went to this place, the answer is not there. Where should I go now? And it honestly said, go to that place and look for the answer. I had just told it the answer wasn't there, and it told me to go back to it and look for it. So I had artificial intelligence on my mind, and I was listening to this podcast on the way home. And I don't know whether any of you know the story of this is an ancient Hebrew, and I don't know where I heard of it, but I've known of this story since I was in high school. The ancient story of the golem in Hebrew legend. The golem in Hebrew legend is a, and this is where the Jews kind of get off the track here. The golem in Hebrew legend is an ability that, who knows where they came from? I think I do, those fallen angels, but it's a Hebrew legend that you can, if you know the Kabbalah, if you've ever heard of that, that's the mystic far end of the Jewish religion. If you know the Kabbalah, you can fashion a man out of clay and make it come to life. Now, some of you, this might be ringing a story. I've heard this before in Genesis, where somebody fashioned a man out of clay and breathed life into his nostrils. We've heard that before. But the Jews had these Kabbalists had a set of rituals that they could go through and supposedly create this thing of clay that would come to life with the right incantation. Now you and I both know, we know who that we know who's doing that. But there is a very recent legend of the Golem of Prague, and this is in the 14th century. This is or the 1500s. This is in the 1500s of a rabbi, the head teacher in Prague, Czechoslovakia, that the Jewish community there in Prague was having some serious persecution problems with the people with the Poles that were in Prague, and they were hard persecuting the Jewish community there. And the Rabbi Lowe decided that he would he was a Kabbalist. He would create this man out of clay. So one night he and his disciples went, fashioned him out of clay in the river there on the city in the riverbank. And what you go through an incantation, but at the end you write it. It depends on the legend. You write either God's true name, Yehovah, Yud He Vav He, on the Golem's forehead, or you write the word Mira, truth, on his forehead, and it would come to life. Um, one other thing, it would either be writing on his forehead, or you write God's name on a parchment and put it in its mouth, and it would come to life. And the legend, and this is the 1500s, the legend says it came to life and it would roam the streets at night and during the day. And if any of the of the ruffians, the hoodlums, would come into the Jewish community to cause problems, the golem would take care of them. It would run them out because this thing was 7 feet tall, made of clay. So it's a monster, but it would run them out. The problem with it is that it did exactly what the rabbi told it. The rabbi told it to watch the community and chase people that don't belong here out. One of the things that the rabbi tried right away was to get it to bring water, and no running, not much running water here, so he told it to go down and get water and bring it back to this lady's house. Well, the golem just went down, got water, and kept on. You ever seen the Mickey Mouse cartoon where he teaches the broom to go down and get water and ends up flooding the house? Well, the golem did the same thing. In fact, that's where Disney got the idea for that Mickey Mouse cartoon, is the golem legend. So the golem flooded the house because the lady didn't have any control of the golem. It was the rabbi that did, and the rabbi was gone, and he just kept bringing water and flooded her house. Also, the golem, the people started to realize that they shouldn't be persecuting the Jews, mainly because they had this big guy garden thing. So the community um, began to have a little more respect for the Jews. But the problem is, when they would come to visit some of the Jews, the golem couldn't tell the difference, and the golem would chase people off, and he began to get a little rough with people, and in fact kill some folks that weren't ruffians. So the rabbi went, and all he did then was erase the name from his forehead, and the golem went back to being mud. But just in case, the rabbi took him up to the attic of the synagogue there, had him sit down, and then he erased the name. And so the golem was on in the attic, basically dead, and they covered him with their prayer shawls. And the legend has it that the golem is still there in the synagogue in Prague, and there are rooms in that synagogue where the Jews will not let people go in. So take that for what it is. But what does it sound like to you when a man creates this thing that is kind of like it's alive, but it really doesn't have any kind of consciousness, any soul in it? It just does these things one after the other. What does that sound like that I just mentioned?
These robots they're talking about?
Right. It sounds like this artificial intelligence they're building. The robots that run by artificial intelligence, this agent that I was yelling at this morning that didn't have the sense to know that the answer wasn't there. It sounds like that, doesn't it?
Reminds me of the Antichrist and the beast, the false, well, the image of the beast.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of thing. It sounds like, just like I was saying, this rabbi going there and creating life from mud sounds a lot like he's trying to do the same thing that God did when he created a living being. But we aren't meant to do that. We aren't meant, and what in this rabbi's mind made him think that that was a good idea? And it just, I mean, it hit me like a brick that, is this artificial intelligence that we're building a golem? Are we going to have to deal with it rampaging through everything because we're trying to build something that is alive, because you listen to some of these computer scientists that build these things. They they think that they're going to create something that can think like us, that can have reasoning. Yeah, that
Well,
one.
I did hear something about that.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that you're gonna have two AIs, a good one and a bad
A
one,
good
and
one and a
one's
bad
gonna
one.
be based on God, and one's not gonna be based on God.
And the thing is, and
Because you're gonna have to make a choice.
you're going to have to make a choice, but the choice is that we don't want to be like that rabbi. The rabbi thought he was doing something godly to build a protector for his community. Who is the protector of the Jewish people? He's been the protector of the Jewish people from the time of Abraham. He told them he was their protector. And this rabbi thought, well, he's not doing such a good job. Let me lend a hand. Let's not ever fall into that trap.
How do you spell that, Gollum?
Golem.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you can look it up. You can see the legends, and there are a bunch of different. The legends are. There are some. There are some when it goes way back. There are some that are really strange. There are some. The Kabbalah part of Judaism, they went way too far into that realm. They went way too far. I've read a lot of the uh, Kabbalistic literature, and they went way too far into mysteries that they had no business being in. And it's still here. There's still people that practice Kabbalah. It's it's way off the rails. You need to stay away from that. Stay away from it. In fact, I think Mormonism, I think Joseph Smith was reading a lot of Kabbalah when he came up with his stories. um, so I just wanted to bring that to you because that's just another one of those weird things that have been happening around that had a lot of of um, of action that we've been talking about lately, especially in the Genesis study on Wednesday night, about going too far. You going too far, and this forbidden knowledge here that we have no business knowing, yeah, that can get real dangerous. So I just wanted to bring that up because that was what we were talking. Anthony and I were talking about on Wednesday night, and like I said, I wish BJ was here so he could hear another weirdness going on. So anyway, that being said, let's get back here to the church in Philadelphia. Now we talked about that in the introduction. We hear that this one of truth is has the key of David, not the keys, the key of David, and what he shuts, no one can open, and what he opens, no one can shut. And this is one of the things where you got to recognize patterns because this comes from Isaiah. In Isaiah chapter 22. Chapter 22 in Isaiah is, if you look at the heading, if your Bible has headings, it is an oracle concerning Jerusalem. This is a time um, in King Hezekiah's um, reign, and here's my king chart. Hezekiah is right in the middle, and he is of course in the southern kingdom. We're in Judah. Hezekiah was one of the good kings in Judah. He reigned 29 years, good long time. A good king in that time. Hezekiah brought back a lot of godliness after he reigned after Ahaz. So yeah, that was not a good time. He brought back a lot of godliness into the kingdom, but they are having some problems with some of their neighbors, which is not, this is we're not surprised at this. And Hezekiah had a steward, and that's what we're going to deal with, a steward running the kingdom because he not always was there. So, the 15th verse of the 22nd chapter of Isaiah. Thus says the Lord God of hosts, come, go to this steward, to this Shebna, who is over the household, and say to him. Now, that Shebna is the steward of Jerusalem. He's the steward of Jerusalem who is supposed to look after the city while Hezekiah is busy somewhere else. Go to the steward and say to him, now that's God saying to Isaiah, what have you to do here? And to whom have you here, that you have cut out where I have where well, let me start over again. What have you Let me take my glasses off. What have you to do here, and whom have you here, that you have cut out here a tomb for yourself? You who cut out a tomb on the height and carve a dwelling for yourself in the rock. Now this is an odd thing to say, but this steward here was cutting himself a tomb out, and you you just don't do that. You're supposed to be dealing with things, and he's spending his time making a good place for him in the afterlife. Behold, verse 17, behold, the Lord will hurl you away violently, O you strong man. He will seize hold on you and hurl you around and around and throw you like a ball on the wide land. Here you shall die, and there shall be your glorious chariots, you shame of your mother's house. I will thrust you from your office, and you will be pulled down from your station. Wow, I don't think God is really pleased with how he's been ruling the kingdom. And if you read the first part of chapter 22, it describes what's going on here, because we've got two kingdoms, two small kingdoms coming down to lay siege to Jerusalem, and the people don't know what to do. They're running around like chickens with their heads cut off because nobody is in charge, because this guy is building himself a gold-studded tomb to lay in. So God is not happy to the verse 20. Here it comes. In that day I will call my servant Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with your robe, and will bind your stash on him, and will commit your authority to his hand. He shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Here it comes. And I, the Most High God, will place on his shoulder the key to the house of David. He shall open, and none shall shut, and he shall shut, and none shall open. And I will fasten him like a peg in a secure place, and he will become a throne of honor to his father's house. If you were a Jew reading this letter, if you were a Jew in Philadelphia reading this letter, and you saw who has the key of David and who opens and no one will shut, you knew exactly what God is saying. He's saying that he is the one. He has the key to David. And he's talking about a troubled time here. And he's also, this makes him talking to not the people of Jerusalem. Philadelphia. In the same way that God is not talking to the people of Jerusalem in Isaiah's time, because they don't know what to do. He's talking to the leadership. So this tells us who this letter is to. This is not just to the people of the Philadelphian church. This is especially to the leadership of that church. And it is a dire warning. So the elders, the deacons, the leadership of this congregation here in Philadelphia, as soon as they saw that line right there, you better believe they sat up straight and started to listen. God says in verse 8, I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, but and yet you have kept my word and have not denied any and have not denied my name. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you, because you have kept my word about because you have kept my word about patient endurance. I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world, to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast to what you have, so that no one will seize your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it. I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, and the new Jerusalem which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own new name. He who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The synagogue of Satan, who he's talking about, who say they are Jews but they are not, these are the leadership of the church in Philadelphia that are leading them, that are not leading them. They are the stewards that God is talking to in Isaiah. That steward Shibna, that's who this synagogue of Satan is. And God is saying, I'm coming to hang him out to dry. He has nothing to say to the people in Philadelphia but help, just like Trump said, help is on the way. Help is on the way. God is coming to protect them from the coming trial. That verse 10 is a tough one. Because you have kept my word about with patient endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world, to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast to what you have, so that no one will seize your crown. That's a tough one. That is a tough verse, and if we knew the job was dangerous when we went to Revelation. I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world, to try those who dwell on the earth. And of course, the first thing that we think of is the great tribulation that we've heard stories about in Revelation. And we'll get to that later on and deal with this tribulation that's coming. But what is he talking about here? What is he talking about? This great hour of trial that is coming upon the whole world. He will keep them from it. A lot of people think that's the rapture. I'm not sure. I'm not
I
sure.
was going to say ascension. Yeah.
I'm not sure, because guess what? None of these people who this was written to got raptured. None of them. So I'm not sure what this is talking about. I'm not sure. This doesn't fit with any of the even the even the timeline that we may be able to put together. I'm not sure what he's talking about there. What trial of the whole world he's going to protect them from.
Maybe it's to protect them from the time that's coming, the tribulation period. Maybe he's going to keep them from that.
And it could be that the issue is, and
Whether
that would
that
be
be
the
by
best guess.
rapture or they just their generation dies out.
The the tribulation coming would be the best guess, but it
Yeah.
says the whole world. It says the whole world, so
Yeah,
that's
which is to try the whole world, which that would be the tribulation, I
yeah.
would think.
So this one is one that we're going to have to come back to. This one is one we're going to have to come back to try and figure out where this fits in the rest of where it fits from chapter 4 on, because we haven't even gotten to the the visions that John is going to see after his original one. So we got some mysteries to untangle here that we we've had answers in other premillennial, postmillennial, pre-tribulation, post-tribulation. We've got answers from all of them, but like I say, what we want to do is read what the scripture says and stay true to that and just kind of forget everything we've been taught. Because Anthony was trying to pin me down last night again. Which one are you? Pre-trib, post-trib? And I told him, I don't know right now. I don't know.
Would that be the ones that's left behind that they would be protected?
That could
I don't
be.
know.
That could be. It could be. I mean, we got to deal with a lot of stuff coming up, and like I say, I don't want to carry any of my early because I told Anthony I've been on all sides of this debate coming growing up. I've been on all of the sides. They all sound good, but then there's pieces of them that just don't fit. They don't fit. That's why I would change. Is this one better? Is this one? No, it doesn't fit exactly. So I want us to go in here and just try and keep an open mind, and let's try and figure out something that fits. One thing that fits is that key of David, the one who opens, no one will shut, and the one we figured that out. That comes from Isaiah, and he's talking to those leaders that are Jews and are not Jews. They're Gentiles that are pretending to be Jews and leading this people astray during a time of trial, just like that steward in Isaiah did. That's why God put that there, so these people would know who he's talking to. I'm talking to your leadership, folks, not you. That's why he put that there. I am convinced of that. But then he throws in protect you from the coming trials for the whole world. Oh, Father, please help us. Please help us. We're almost at the end, and I shouldn't have inserted that Gollum story in there, but it just that was a kick in the head there. I was thinking we've got a Gollum. We've got a Gollum we got to deal with in this artificial intelligence stuff. Oh god. Okay. So keep that in mind. Keep that Gollum story in mind because it's going to come up again. I know it. This artificial intelligence something is us trying to create life again. We've done it before. Solomon told us nothing new under the sun. We tried to create life. The Jews tried to do it with their Kabbalistic mumbo jumbo, and it went south on them. They created a demon. So keep that in mind. But I think it was important to do that because it fit. All right, under a minute. Any quick questions before we get blipped off here?
Nope. Good one, Norm.
Keep reading. Keep reading. Bring those questions.
Bye,
We'll do it.
everybody.
We'll do it again next week.
Have
See
a
you
good
next
week.
Thursday.
Enjoy your weather.
Yeah. Before it snows again.